right outside, and you must hear this before they stop me and lock my body in an interrogation room for the rest of this decade. His name, Matthias Kuo, age 23. Matthias was a handsome and randy young lad of ample talent and academic honor. Pity none of that helped him survive the year of plague, famine, riots, and economic disaster. Location, San Francisco, California. Date, 2020, naturally. He was becoming a darling in the tech sector, young Matthias was. He had proven himself worthy of the attentions of the largest companies in Silicon Valley. His future was bright, so bright he should have worn shades. Unfortunately, his inflated ego caused his other regions to often inflate with a cocksure attitude, in which he believed every woman he desired should be his. For at least 15 minutes. It would have been devastating if his goals weren't frequently met and matched by gaggles of loose and lascivious vixens in that libertine cauldron of a town. For the young and the rich, the beautiful, San Francisco is an ever-shifting orgy. The right people feed into it, and only emerge when their desirability is depleted. Matthias was one of those that fed into it with ease and was honored to stay for as long as the ride would tolerate his presence. The blossoming engineer was eager to drill deep into prime crude from the city on the bay, and his lust for an ultimate affair, a supreme beauty to relieve his base needs, became a consuming fetish. It led him into his seductive arms, the seductive arms of the nightlife, and from there he crossed paths with a woman he found a deep connection with. The connection he suffered wasn't due to any emotional or core values, but to his ego and supreme fantasy. Before him was a young woman so mind-breakingly pretty and sexy that he had to have her. He had to. The moment his eyes scanned across her flesh, he was locked into a mania he had never encountered before. Something of this girl had instantly latched onto his very soul and held all attention fast to her writhing form, dancing in the lights and lasers crisscrossing the clubroom's floor. Matthias Kuo was about to find apotheosis in this impossible siren. He believed he could sate his every desire through this conjoining. He believed he could finally sow some of the seed that would feed his need and free him from the confining ardor of carnal craving. How correct he was. After a long and flirtatious night with this brown-haired beauty, the mating ritual of push and pull, beckon and barricade had concluded. Kuo had his prey by the hand, and she willingly followed him a short distance to a hotel next to the club where they had met. Shortly, she was gently thrown onto a king-sized bed in a pleasantly decorated room. Clothes were removed without effort, and two bodies slid together. Two beautiful young bodies meant for procreation. But this was not the heady responsibility of creating life. It was a mere ritual to feed inner cravings. Both ends of this stick feeding a different beast within. Kuo could notice little else than this girl's large and luscious eyes, her perfect face crowned an incredible body, but all the extraneous beauty faded away in his mind once he met her eyes below him on the bed. There was a depth, a warmth, and beauty that numbed his consciousness. He felt high, as if on a drug, as if he was mesmerized by this mysterious and potent female. Without a guiding hand or any resistance, his wanting member navigated her folds and was deep. His primal mind commenced the repetitive motions that would culminate in his desired eminence, his life's climax. All the time, he just stared into her eyes, his face going slack, but body still working hard. If you pardon my expression. The repetitive motions continued and continued and continued, and through the mental miasma, his movements seemed odd. The Lothario stud biscuit wasn't jackhammering like he usually did. He was rocking back and forth in a lazy motion. A glimmer of pain came to his emerging mind, and then deadly pain. Strong, shattering, the pain engulfing his groin. It felt as if his groin was being eaten alive. Lo, it was! This mysterious creature he had bedded down was not what she seemed. All outward appearances were those of a seductive female, but her crotch was something else. Something unworldly. It was like a giant mouth consuming his body, dragging him deeper into a gaping and voracious demonic maw. Acids from her nether portal were reducing his flesh. Slowly, slowly, her legs and body rocking him back and forth to force him inward to her. Matthias panicked, looking down between them to see his body bend oddly inward at the crotch, his pelvis already reduced and mostly consumed. The man's legs dangling out down the bed were gradually, millimeter by millimeter, crawling into her. His mind exploded with fear and confusion. The survival instinct took hold, but he made another fatal mistake. He looked back into her bewitching eyes once more, her serenely pretty eyes with such depth and mesmeric warmth. And in that moment, her affect took hold once more. Matthias Kuo was stunned into immobility. His will to move and function was robbed of him. He stayed conscious, though, aware of what was happening this entire time, but unable to do anything other than stare straight ahead like a deer caught in headlights. She had lured him like a moth to the flame, and he was being reduced by that deadly fire within her. A perfect predator in this immoral world. The couple's activities lingered onward. It was a slow and laborious process, but one she obviously enjoyed. As the boy folded in half, her lower half ever more engulfing his dissolving form, she sat up to meet and follow his gaze. She kept him transfixed. In a state of idle acquiescence, her inviting and tenderly arousing smile waxed and waned, filling the young man's heart with regret. Regret that he was passing from this world, never able to feel his true love. And then his heart burst, not so much from the agony of his lovelorn attitude, but because his compressed chest was now within her gaping loins. The pitiless female continued to stare at him with a loving smile as his head and arms and feet remained. She would make sure to see his dead gaze until it was no more, until it was eclipsed by her mons pubis. And soon it was done. Only his arms were left dangling out. She collapsed backwards, gently, propping herself on a stack of bedpillows, enjoying the remaining meal. Her body was reducing down all the flesh and bone with acids and gentle mastication of serrated and enameled bone inside an articulated pelvis. The man's pulp was being forced up inside her to nourish her. This preternatural creature on the bed sighed heavily as her belly was filled and her body regained much-needed energy. The light of a new day dawned through the windows in San Francisco. All that remained in that room was a set of wrinkled and bloody sheets. A set of male clothes. and no identification as to who or what had stayed there that night. Not any clue to what had transpired. Matthias Kuo, age 23, was merely a stud biscuit, a snack, a meal for the taking. He played loose and lively in a fast-paced and powerful world some cautioned would eat him up and spit him out. How right they were. He was eaten up, but nothing of his remains were ever spit out.
Like and subscribe before I die! And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can say.
Depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a